Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we continue our coverage of the ongoing war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. And obviously, today is number 48, day 48 in the ongoing war. And who would have thought that just 48, 49 days ago, after listening to General Milley state that the Russians would seize control of Kiev within 72 hours, how more wrong could he have been in that analysis that him and his fellow compatriots at the Pentagon were wrong in terms of again that analysis. But a lot to cover today. And first and foremost, we're going to start with the fighting that is taking place, and then we're going to have a discussion about the future of the main battle tank. I want to talk about that real quick. I probably should do another video, but I'm going to include it in this one for right now. But right now, over the course of the last 24 hours, we have seen approximately 37 Russian tactical airstrikes on targets throughout the Ukraine, including targets in the vicinity of Kiev or outside of Kiev. And we continue to see Russian forces attempt to degrade and destroy the air defense assets of the Ukrainian military. I think a lot of folks are rather surprised that going into 50 days of fighting now, that we are still talking about the Ukrainian air defense capabilities, and I think many people, as this conflict started, anticipated that the Russians would knock that capacity out. But as I talked about before, the Ukrainians are receiving direct support from Western nations. They are receiving both intel information, active intelligence information. So when Russian multi-role aircraft or strike aircraft cross the Ukrainian frontier, the border between Russia and Ukraine, that information is being directly relayed to Ukrainian air defense units. And unfortunately for the Russians, the Ukrainians are able to simply turn off a lot of their long-range air defense radars, which could be destroyed by the Russians if they were actually up and running and operating. But the Ukrainians do not need to do that because they're being supported directly by the United States in the form of long-range surveillance aircraft that have the ability to operate very close to the border of Poland and Ukraine, Romania and Ukraine. And they are able to see very, very deep inside of Ukraine and identify Russian aircraft as they enter and prepare for airstrikes. And it would appear that the Russians are very, very hesitant about operating in western Ukraine in terms of fixed-wing tactical aircraft. We are seeing continued cruise missile strikes on high-value targets that the Russians want to go after in western Ukraine, but actual Russian aircraft physically flying over western Ukraine, it could be very precarious given the amounts of medium-range and long-range air defense systems that the Ukrainians possess. The heaviest fighting over the last 24 hours have been within the vicinity of Mariupol. I understand this map is not correct. The Russians control probably significantly more territory than what is displayed in the map, and I talked about in the previous video. They have in all probability cut the Ukrainian forces off in several areas. In fact, we believe that the area in the Primorsky district towards the southwest may have in fact surrendered in entirety. We have heard reports of up to 1,000 Ukrainian Marines that have reportedly surrendered to Russian forces and Russian National Guard units in the ongoing conflict. So it looks like, as of right now, there's still some heavy fighting taking place. but it would appear that the Russians are kind of polishing things up and finishing things off for the Ukrainian armed forces within the vicinity of Mariupol. These guys, the Ukrainian defenders of the city, really are probably out of ammunition, probably are in a desperate need in terms of food and supplies. And after 50 days of fighting, ammunition can run out fast, especially in terms of the types of firefights that have been occurring within the vicinity of Mariupol. So keeping an eye on that, and we believe that we could see the eventual fall of Mariupol quite possibly sooner rather than later now, given the situations on the ground that are being reported. There continues to be fighting in the what I would define as the Kramatorsk sector, and in this area is going to run all the way south of Kharkiv, all the way down towards Donetsk. And there is a significant Ukrainian force presence that is still defending this area, specifically Sloviansk, Severodonetsk, Kramatorsk, and a host of other border towns and villages that have been fortified prior to the ongoing fighting. And the Russians can continue to push towards Popasnaya. They continue to push and are engaged in urban fighting and fighting in these forests around Severodonetsk. And we continue to see the Russians exploit and appear to have initiative within the area of Izium. So right now we're seeing a four-pronged operation by the Russians. Once they broke out south of Izium, we're seeing a Russian force heading due west, another force heading kind of southwest. We anticipate this force is designed to kind of go around and encircle Kramatorsk to the west, while another two echelons of Russian mechanized columns are pressing both along the east and west of the E40 main highway towards Sloviansk. Again, the main objective for the Russians is obviously Kramatorsk, Sloviansk, and to eventually encircle and pocket those Ukrainian forces in this area. And as I talked about in an earlier video, that is going to be a pivotal battle for the Russians in terms of seeking future possible success in ongoing operations in other parts of the country. There continues to be fighting southeast of Mykolaiv. We have seen some of these recent operations by the Ukrainians to retake areas to the west of Kherson. Those operations have been blunted by Russian forces, and we continue to see limited counterattacks on both sides in this continued area of operations. Now, I wanted to get to the talking points of the main battle tank, kind of where it stands. We have seen a lot of instances in this conflict of both Russian and Ukrainian main battle tanks just taking catastrophic damage and being destroyed, and we've especially have seen some very advanced weapon systems, such as the Swedish Saab INLAW, next generation light anti-tank weapon system. I think that has been probably one of the biggest surprises in the ongoing conflict. I think a lot of people were talking about the Javelin, and the Javelin is a very capable system and is in fact causing a lot of problems for the Russians, especially with its ability to engage distance targets and its ability to see in the thermal spectrum and again at great distances. Now the INLAW is a much shorter distance weapon. I think its simplicity is its key factor in success. It is not a persistent guided anti-tank weapon system, meaning the operator does not keep a reticle on the target and then guides the missile to the target, nor is it a true fire and forget system. It does have a certain fire and forget capability in terms of the onboard ballistics computer detecting the movement of the operator in terms of tracking a target and then going to that specified target locale. But it's really a direct line of sight weapon that if you take other systems such as the AT4 and the RPG-7 kind of in that genre, that the previous systems that were used before the in-law, you had a high probability of either overlining, meaning shooting over top of the target, or underlining the target, it striking the ground in front of the target, or it hits the target and the warhead does not detonate, or it fails to penetrate in some cases. With the in-law, you're basically aiming, your aim point is the silhouette of the target, and the in-law automatically overflies 1 to 3 meters above that target, then detonates a shaped charge down onto the target, thus destroying it. And it is an incredibly successful piece of equipment that quite frankly is a combination of efforts from Sweden to the United Kingdom to the United States to even I believe some of its components are some high-end Japanese electronics as well. So really a kind of a worldwide effort in terms of deploying the system, and the warhead is kind of based off the old Bill or Bill 2, which again is a top attack type of weapon, but we're seeing it work very, very well. If it hits a target, it's almost guaranteed either a mobility or a catastrophic kill on a tank or an armored infantry fighting vehicle. So with that being said, with these types of weapons that are being deployed, such as the in-law, and I would assume after this conflict, as we evaluate to make these weapon systems better, they will probably become better. So then what happens to the main battle tank? And I have to be honest with you, I think on one hand, you have to look in terms of the modern main battle tank, in terms of 3-man crew, 4-man crews, and the way the tank is produced and designed in terms of preventing frontal aspect penetrations, meaning most of the armor on main battle tanks are either on the turret front or the hull front, and with less armor on the sides and obviously rear. And I think right now, I think the Russians, in terms of the T-14 Armata, were probably onto something. I think they probably realize that the era of the traditional main battle tank may be passing us. Now, that's not to say that the main battle tank will not evolve and turn into something that becomes more capable than what it is now, especially in terms of having the ability to defend itself against some of these next generation anti-tank weapon systems. I think the future, when I say the future, I'm talking 10, 20 years from now, is something that probably looks very much like the T-14 Armata, except it doesn't have a crew. I think in the future, these main battle tanks, or these armored infantry fighting vehicles, well, they would be tanks, and because obviously they would not be transporting infantry. So I believe, number one, they're going to have advanced radars. They're going to obviously have to have advanced optronics, next generation thermal optics. But more importantly, I think, is the future of artificial intelligence. I think at a certain point, these tanks may not even be remotely operated. Because even if you're remotely operating a tank, you have to be aware at all times to your surroundings. And especially in this era of guided anti-tank guided weapon systems, you have just literally a few seconds of time before that weapon system strikes your tank. So I think as we head into the future, a artificial intelligence system that is able to infuse and constantly have this information fusion of both its onboard radar, its optical equipment that is on the vehicle, its optronics, and also having direct information from other vehicles around it and even aircraft and drones that would have the ability to rapidly detect an inbound anti-tank guided weapon system, and in all likelihood the future of the main battle tank. In order for them to be effective, they're going to have some sort of working active protection system, meaning as these anti-tank guided weapon systems approach the next generation of fighting vehicle, that is going to be able to detect that missile and then shoot that missile down with an onboard a projectile or its own smaller guided missile of some sort. And we've seen that right now with the Armata, the T-14. The Russians are looking in that direction, and I think it's a smart direction to look at. And I think the problem right now for the Russians is manufacturing capability, is financial capabilities as well. But as we observed with the in-law, you see a host of nation states working on this system. I mean, you see Sweden, you see the United Kingdom, you see, in all probability, DARPA and other U.S. Research facilities assisting in the manufacturing development of the in-law. And that's why we now have such a really good weapon system, is because all these nations kind of came together with their resources and developed a very good anti-tank guided weapon system, or a semi-guided weapon system that obviously it started in Sweden, but nonetheless it was directly supported by other nations as well, especially manufacturing in the United Kingdom and elsewhere. But I think that's where the future of the main battle tank is going to be. I don't think it's going to be completely eliminated because these high-tech industries are going to figure out new types of armor to deploy on these vehicles. They're going to new lightweight types of armor that could possibly resist some of these more advanced shape charges. We're going to see active protection systems come into play as well. And as optical and radar systems increase in capabilities, but more importantly, the artificial intelligence that will be placed into these vehicles, which will have 24/7 situational awareness, or will always be on duty, always looking for possible threats to the main battle tank or to the vehicle. And then at the same time, it will have the ability to identify the targets in front of it and around it as some sort of with some sort of friend or foe identification. And not sure what that looks like, and I know there is some hesitancy to deploy these artificial intelligent systems, but ultimately that's where we're heading. A computer has much more and quicker processing power than a human being. And even from the aspect of aerospace, the pilot in the current generation fighter aircraft are really limited by G-forces that they can withstand on their bodies. And when you put an artificial intelligence into that aircraft, and that aircraft doesn't have issue with massive G-forces and can go much faster and turn much tighter than current aircraft, given the G-force issue with the human body. I think that's where warfare is heading, and I think we're very close to that age, and I think probably within the next 10 years. And that force, that fighting force, who is able to deploy a artificial intelligent system, ground system, air system, that force is going to be the winner of the next war in the future, whatever that looks like. And believe you me, there is going to be wars in the future, and in all probability there is going to be a third world war. I know from current history, obviously we have the Second World War, the First World War, but look, as humanity, we have been fighting for thousands of years, and I assure you, we will be fighting for thousands of years in the future as well, if we make it that long. Have a good day, everybody.